Good morning and thanks for joining us on today's edition of Prime Flash on My Media Prime Television. With me, Audrey Zatsa. The President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, has ordered for a series of administrative and financial measures to be implemented in order to lay to rest the teachers' strike, which has been ongoing for 3 weeks now. The measures, according to a communique signed by the Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic, Ferdinand Gongo, are the payment of teachers' salaries, arrears and benefits before the end of March 2022 and via housing allowances beginning in May 2022 via accumulated classification salary payment by June 2022. Integration into the public service system should be made as soon as they are near completion of studies. The Ministry of Administrative Reform and Public Service should fasten the integration process of the files which have been collected, and competitive examinations into ENS and NSET shall henceforth be co-organized by the Ministries of Public Service and Higher Education. A press conference will be held this 10th of March with the ministries concerned to inform the public on details of the measures taken. Mourning and consternation in Bamenda following the assassination of Fonkum Achutu of Ezu Menchum Division alongside his first wife. They were reportedly attacked and killed by a gang of Fulani headsmen yesterday, March 9, as they returned to the village after an enthronement of the fort of neighboring Way village. The fort of Esu, it should be noted, was one of the few still living in his palace despite ongoing socio-political tension that has ravaged the division. Cameroonian journalist and blogger Paul Chuter is currently receiving medical treatment in Yaoundé after he was violently assaulted in the nation's capital. According to his colleagues, Paul Chuter was abducted last night in Damas, a neighborhood in Yaoundé, by unidentified men in a vehicle who took him to a locality on the outskirts of Yaoundé located on the Nsimalen Yaoundé Highway. They say he was found naked with severe wounds on his face. The Ministry of Public Health will this March 10 launch a campaign to fight against malaria, an initiative of the First Lady, Mrs. Chantal Biya, which aims at significantly reducing the disease in Cameroon. According to Public Health Minister Dr. Manauda Malachi, the 2021 World Report on the Fight Against Malaria highlights that Cameroon is amongst the 11 countries in the world most affected by this disease. The rate of crime in the city of Yaoundé has been blamed to a greater extent on the high consumption of drugs of all kinds by youths. Colette Loom went finding out from parents the role they play to eradicate this ill. Her report.
Drugs are chemical compounds that affect the mind and body, according to Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. Some drugs include cocaine, marijuana, tramadol, just to name these. Following persistent cases of drug consumption in the country by most Yaoundé youths, there is an urgent need for effective actions in this domain to curb this phenomenon. Going by statistics, the increased consumption of drugs is at 61% with youth in the center region. The causes are enormous.
Drugs and drug addiction and drug distribution. I think it's critically important to think about how quality of life issues have been compromised in many ways. The majority of folks who are in hand-to-hand, open-air drug markets engaging in that work to get rich, right? Most of those folks are engaging in that work to eat. So in many cases, you have families for generations who have only been able to survive because those support networks have all been taken away. So if you have a felony in Illinois, you can't hold almost 60 jobs. You can't be an electrician, you can't teach. So this thing around looking at how disenfranchisement negatively affects communities, this kind of long-term imprisonment for people for nonviolent drug offenses doesn't work at all. Networks in place, but I don't think you should have treatment over here education over here.
It is worth noting that the effects of drugs are devastating, going by medics, some of which are extreme sensitivity to touch, sound and sight, anger, paranoid, feeling, decreased appetite. The $1 million question is if parents assist these kids in the eradication of drug consumption.
First and foremostly, we the parents have the responsibility to control our kids in so many activities they perform.
As parents, we need to advise our children, give them moral instruction, how to behave in the society, because sometimes when we see this type of things happening is the type of friends that the children are mixing around with them. So for this one, I can give advice to the parents that they should give their children moral instruction.
Therefore, while parents and society implement measures to combat the phenomenon, youth must be responsible as well.
It's 2 days after the 37th edition of the International Women's Day was celebrated throughout the national territory under the theme Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. Let's have the effervescence of this celebration in Limbe, southwest region of the country with Catherine Ekongwe.
Women in Limbe 3 subdivision have been called upon to be self-reliant and independent in order to achieve the set goals of gender equality for a sustainable future. The call was made by the divisional officer for Limbe 3 subdivision, Epole Ewaneveclean, during the celebration of the 37th edition to commemorate the International Women's Day.
We really need to make sure we have or to lay emphasis on as a woman. We have to know that, first of all, we cannot overemphasize on educating the girl child. If the girl child is not educated, you don't expect any sustainable growth in the society. For those who are still keeping their girl children at home, we know that a lot has changed over time, but there are still some people who have that mentality that the girl child is meant to be in the kitchen. And for those who are still of that mentality, please, we urge you to stop thinking that way and educate your girl child.
The second deputy mayor for Limbe 3 subdivision, Jo Caroline, on her part called on women to be ambassadors of peace in their homes and train their children in an upright manner, taking into consideration the several distractions of the world with the advent of the internet. Representing the divisional delegates for women empowerment and the family for FACU, Karin Takere congratulated the Women's Forum of Limbe 3 subdivision and urged them to work together for a common interest, which is for their personal development and that of their families. Meantime, week-long activities to commemorate the 37th edition of the International Day in Limbe 3 witnessed socio-cultural activities such as traditional dances, playbacks, football encounters, pitching 8 different teams, just to name a few. The Limbe 3 Women Forum equally embarked on a door-to-door sensitization campaign to help women better understand the meaning of gender equality, thus reducing the gradient of physical violence amongst men within the municipality. The celebration ended with the award of prizes to participating teams and a visit to the exhibition stands flooded with farm products from the fertile volcanic soil in Bimbia.
Still on Women's Day, let's have a glimpse of the celebration in Bamenda, northwest region of the country, with Charles Kebwa.
2 years since the 2020 Women's Day celebrations in Bamenda that witnessed an explosive at the Commercial Avenue, women in most parts of the Northwest region joined their peers, national and international, to celebrate this year's 37th edition of the International Women's Day amidst ghost town and tight security.
The trade union leaders at the beginning of the crisis, we have taken necessary measures to secure the region. And if you are able to celebrate joyfully today, it is thanks to those measures that has been put in place to secure not only the headquarters of the region, but the remote areas, including the border of the region.
Celebrations at the Bamenda Commercial Avenue Grandstand March 8 was presided at by Northwest Governor Aldolphe Lele Lafrique and wife. Call on the women of the Northwest region to use the day a turning point on the socio-economic political crisis ravaging the region. Seek peace and ensure peace.
To those of our boys who are still in the bushes to come out of the bushes and join their friends to rebuild back better this region. I'm also appealing to the diaspora and to stop intoxicating the masses and becoming agents of peace wherever they are to give chance to peace in our nation.
The women of the Northwest region, through their representative presenting their plight, said most women have abandoned their farms because of insecurity, and they've cried too much as women, bearing their children to loved ones. Appeal for an end to the ongoing Anglophone crisis, a hindrance, she said, for tomorrow's sustainability.
It has rendered the women vulnerable. Most of them, they have abandoned their businesses and their farming work. So most of them now they are at home, they are mourning, they have lost their children, they have lost their businesses, and they have income.
Celebrating on the theme equality between women and men, today for a sustainable tomorrow, to the Commissioner for Health and Social Development at the Northwest Regional House of Assembly.
If a woman is educated, meaning that a woman should be empowered, if a woman is empowered economically, socially, politically, automatically development follows. Because if you look at it very well, the world has more than 50 women, but they are marginalized. So if they realize the importance of these women, I think a lot of things will change. That is giving what is worth a woman. What is for the woman is hers. I think a lot of things will change. 7 women were awarded with the 2022 Excellence Award for enhancing development's life. Amongst was Binono Flora, a bike repairer technician in Bamenda. March past and celebrations grace the day.
On our health page, we talk about bleeding disorders, a group of conditions in which there is a problem with the body's blood clotting process. Bokingo Wadi highlights on this.
Bleeding disorders is a health condition that affects the normal process of blood clot. Characterized by a defect in platelet functioning, the health condition possesses mild to severe symptoms such as heavy bleeding during menstruation, excessive bleeding after surgery, swollen joints, blood in urine, coughing and vomiting of blood, prolonged nosebleed, dizziness, headache, and many more, which most often may be treated lightly by sufferers who over time may have gotten used to the symptoms due to reoccurrence. Being both an acquired and a hereditary disorder, with the most common forms including hemophilia A, hemophilia B, and von Willebrand disease, the signs, symptoms, triggers, risk factors, as well as causes may differ on the type of bleeding disorder as well as its severity. Around the world, more than 1 million persons suffer from inherited bleeding disorder, with an estimated 418,000 of them suffering from a severe version, which is mostly undiagnosed and can lead to death over time. It is worth mentioning that undiagnosed bleeding disorders can be dangerous, especially for women, as it increases the risk of excessive bleeding during childbirth, a miscarriage, and death in cases of abortion. Nonetheless, experts say joint x-rays, regular blood tests, physical therapy, regular general checkup are ways to help prevent and manage bleeding disorders as well as reduce the prevalence worldwide.
And out of the country, the United Nations has received a notification from Ukraine that it intends to withdraw about 250 troops serving in the UN peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as military equipment, including some aircraft. UN spokesman Stefan Durajic confirmed the withdrawal, stressing that every country has a right to withdraw military forces contributed to peacekeeping operations. He acknowledged the tremendous role Ukraine has played, especially on issues of transport and helicopters. Dragic said it is up to the Ukrainian government to explain why it asked to pull out the troops, and the UN will be contacting other countries to replace the troops and equipment in the Democratic Republic of Congo. A date is yet to be announced for the departure. And the Senegalese President Macky Sall, who doubles as chairman of the African Union, said he had talked with Vladimir Putin on Wednesday, March 9, to urge a ceasefire in Ukraine. He made the announcement in a tweet saying that he is delighted of Putin's willingness to maintain dialogue for a negotiated outcome to the conflict after Russia launched its invasion on February 24. The African Union issued a statement calling for Ukraine's territorial integrity and international law to be upheld. It equally urged Russia and Ukraine to implement an immediate ceasefire and open negotiations under UN auspices. That was it for today's edition of Prime Flash, produced by Junior Pelama. Thanks for watching, faithful viewers. You have details of these stories and more stories on 3:30 p.m. Prime Info with Gladys Bomotongina, and 6:30 p.m. Prime News with Eileen Sama. Coming up next is In the House with Eileen Sama and her ladies. Have a nice time.